Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's webinar with Deepblocks. My name is Michael Covone, Chief Revenue Officer of Deepblocks. I appreciate you taking the time to join us this week as we will be exploring Deerfield Beach and in Florida. We're also going to discuss some of the new elements we're adding to Deepblocks software. I'll give you a little sneak peek of some new technology and machine learning models and graphs that we're building out to help compare cities. And today we'll kind of show you and demonstrate how we're comparing census tracts within Deerfield Beach to get a good understanding and help guide your search and development search for parcels based on these graphs to see where there's growth in certain census tracts and really expedite your search and finding the right area that, again, is aligned with your interest for developing your particular projects and really kind of move your process along much faster. Again, here at Deepblocks, we're trying to expedite in an efficient manner, but as well as a very effective manner, site selection across various cities and then eventually across various census tracts, and really hone in and find that various parcels within those census tracts that meet your development criteria. Select those parcels, then use our Explorer interface to go through the feasibility studies, entering setbacks, assumptions, and truly finding the real potential of these parcels to see if they make sense. And again, do everything at a very high level and get a true understanding of if it makes sense to put your resources in the correct place to move forward with a particular project, again, based on your development criteria. But before we get started, I'm going to give a few more minutes to let some more people join us. Feel free at any time to use the chat to ask some questions. If you have some questions at the end of the webinar, please feel free to reach out to me at michael@deepblocks.com, as well as we can set up a one-on-one demo if you want to kind of explore other avenues of Deepblocks. But while I give a few more minutes to let some others join, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to take a little glimpse at the website. And I just like to kind of always go through some of the key areas and resources of Deepblocks, just to kind of give you an idea of where we have certain sections to help you with your understanding of what Deepblocks is capable of doing. So here you'll see this is deepblocks.com. One of the key sections I always like to show is the city section. We're officially in 100 cities throughout the country. You'll notice anything with the red dot represents cities where we have zoning data. Anything with a blue dot represents cities where we have parcel level data. We are the leader in digitizing zoning data. There's not one company that has 100 cities with the depth that we have for zoning information. We truly bring you the strongest zoning components to help you with your analysis and help you select sites based on various zoning factors, as well as other elements and different pieces of key information, including market data, demographic data. So we're incorporating and converging all types of data sets here into one interface at Deepblocks. And also we have our webinar section where we post the previous webinars. In case you do miss a webinar, you can come here to watch the video or always reach out to me. I can send you the video if you want to share it with your team or watch it at a later date. We have our tutorials, which are 30 to 60 second clips, this as well as an intro video kind of going through the key functionalities and the overall premise of Deepblocks. But you can kind of, as you scroll down, you'll get into some of the key capabilities that Deepblocks offers. And these are very helpful instructional videos to get a good feel of how to use Deepblocks to your benefit. We do have a question here. Do you partner up with the MLS? That's a very good question. We do have listing data that we work with in the sense of certain areas on Deepblocks that we show properties for sale. But here at Deepblocks, our main premise is to show all off-market deals as well. And we want to kind of give a blank slate of what is available out there. And in that manner, if you find certain parcels or see an assemblage that makes sense, you can then contact the owner or work with your network to approach the owner of those parcels to develop what you see fit for your particular project. But we do have certain listings in certain areas. But again, our main goal here is to kind of provide and show you all the parcels, what they're zoned for, as well as unit density, gross buildable, and as I'll go through various different sliders and information, FAR values as well, tied to those parcels, so you can truly understand the development potential. We do also partner with MLS to kind of bring in some listing information and sense of some data but we actually apply our machine learning to and take an aggregate of that listing data and apply our machine learning to that data to bring market rates for office rates, residential rates, industrial rates, and retail rates. But in terms of the listings and see what's for sale, as I mentioned, we just show only a handful, in a handful of cities, certain listings, as we again like to try to present all possible market deals. So with that being said, we also have our pricing. We're currently at $36,000 per year. We went from 18 to 36 because we're now in 100 cities, and not only because we're scaling out to more cities, we continue to bring more features and functionalities to the software. Just like to mention, we're working on machine learning models, as I mentioned previously, where we're going to be able to allow you to compare cities, understand the development potential of these cities, as well as take it to the next step. And then once you kind of see what city makes the most sense, you can then compare census tracts within a city, and you'll be able to analyze land values, population values, as well as different types of potential development potential values based on certain uses. So it will give you a really quick and tremendous understanding of a location of a city, and again, the breakdown of the census tract and guide you to where you should be developing in accordance to your projects and your development criteria. So with that being said, let's kind of get ourselves started. I'm going to show you one little sneak peek of what I'm kind of just mentioning. This is what we like to call our 10-year average land value by census tract. This is based out of Deerfield Park, Florida. We extracted these census tracts, and you'll notice that these graphs are charting the average land value by square foot over the past 10 years. So it gives you a real good inclination of where we're seeing certain census tracts that had nice strong growth, like 104 here and 103 had a nice strong incline. And then you can start to see somewhere there's maybe a slight decline, like 403 and 405, so even for 702. So what we're doing here is we're bringing this information and creating these graphs and models so you can quickly identify, again, where the pockets of interest are, where are the trends heading. And again, you can kind of choose and the census tract based on what your needs are. Are you looking for a property where the value is strongly inclining? Are you looking for properties where it's maybe staying relatively flat and relatively on the inexpensive side? Again, it just depends on what your model is for your business, that you can now start your search and kind of really find where the right census tract might make sense for you in terms of your development project. In addition, you can also look for census tracts that might be adjacent to these census tracts and say, all right, maybe this market's kind of priced out at the moment at 104 or 103, but however, maybe we can go look at neighboring census tracts or adjacent census tracts that most likely will get the feel that incline in the next couple of years as that market gets priced out, people will start moving to the neighboring towns. So it might make sense to say, all right, let's look at the neighboring towns of 104 and 103. So these comparison of a census tract gives you a real good feel of where you want to develop, gives you, and again, we're doing this right now. This is across land value. We're also looking at, as I mentioned, last week, we showed you graphs of development potential for industrial use, and we're going to show you different graphs and charts as we each and every week, and as we continue to share this information and kind of roll this out in the next couple weeks to months. So these are very impactful graphs built on a tremendous amount of data that we've been accruing for years, and especially with that zoning data, the real key component behind these numbers and knowledge of understanding different the capacity of different areas of a particular city and its census tract. So with that being said, let's jump into the actual technology, and you'll see we're kind of jumped right already into we're into Deerfield Beach, Florida. So as you can see, what I did here is I enabled, and let me just kind of go back and just so we can see from scratch. All right, here's where you normally log into. This will be the dashboard. We'll jump into the search engine. We'll search Deerfield Beach, and it'll come right up. And what we can do, right, again, from a higher level, zoom out, we can just minimize some of these menus here and these panels so we can get a good overall look of the entire screen. Just to always like to advise, I am using Google Chrome. I like to zoom out at about 80% to kind of capture more on my particular screen. I'm on a 24-inch monitor, so and if you're on an even bigger monitor, you'll be able to capture even more of the view and all the different parcels. But I'm going to zoom out a bit. We're going to get the parcels out of view for a second, You can see right here, this is Deerfield Beach. And I'm going to turn on those census tracts. And as I mentioned, we were looking at let's go back for 1 second. We were looking at 104 and 103. So we can kind of zoom out a bit and try to locate 104 and 103. And you'll notice again, the key, and as you can see, there's a tremendous amount of census tracts within Deerfield Beach, but we just extracted a handful just to kind of give you an idea of how this is going to work and how we can intensify and really expedite your search based on these different graphs and charts to show you where we're seeing the different trends. So if you notice, we'll go up the coast of Deerfield. And we'll start to see, I believe 104, here's number 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe it's along the coast. And in addition to, like, as you search for the different census tracts, we can always turn on some of our layers too, to just help us kind of confirm and identify where we're seeing the growth and strength in a certain particular market. So they kind of go back south a little bit here into Deerfield Beach. I believe it's right over here. Correct. All right. So we can turn on a buildable area ratio, which is always a good measurement of understanding where we're seeing the pockets of density, where we're seeing growth in a particular area. And this kind of will help and demonstrate where, if we're seeing that incline in land value, or we're looking for land value that's relatively flat, we can then start to turn on additional layers to truly help our search and identify parcels based on where we're seeing these different types of growth and different types of pockets of interest. We can start turning on, as I mentioned, go into our people layer and look at the census tract information. I'm sorry, the census data information like median income, and get a good feel what the median income is for a particular census tract as we analyze it and look for different parcels. So as you kind of focus in on certain census tracts, we then can kind of identify and say to ourselves, all right, maybe it's in a lower income area, which makes sense for our particular project. Maybe it's in a higher income area. We can then turn on as well as employment percentage to kind of get a feel for the different employment numbers we're seeing in a particular census tract. So there's just different layers you can start to activate and truly say to yourself, all right, I went from this process, studied this graph, it kind of guided me towards where I want to see the land value inclining. There's an adjacent census tract that I feel makes the most sense. You start turning on these different map layers. Again, we have the gross buildable area ratio layer to understand the pocket of density. We then can jump into the people layer and understand the median income, median rent, and population, and start to formulate and say to yourself, all right, this is all lining up perfectly. Let's stay focused in this particular census tract that is neighboring to a growing census tract, and let's start to locate parcels in that tract based on my development guidelines, which could be industrial, office, retail, residential, or mixed use, whatever, or multifamily, or whatever it may be that you're trying to accomplish. So just to kind of give you a little bit of an example of what I'm trying to demonstrate is, we're going to go make sure we're back in the middle of Deerfield Beach here and get these parcels showing up. All right, so say we're looking at that. We'll go 103. Okay, we're going to start right here in this 104 area. And then, as I mentioned, let's see what the buildable area ratio is. So we got some strong, and you can see the deeper orange, and these deeper colors show some more of the potential of development. And we can kind of continue to zoom in a bit and start to get those parcels to appear. And then we can also turn on, as I mentioned, see if there's any opportunity zones. There's no opportunity zones in this particular part of Deerfield Beach. We can then look at the median incomes, see what kind of incomes we're looking at. So a little bit lower income there. I believe it's a little bit higher income right here, so we can kind of focus in on some of those as well. If I'm going to do more of an industrial play, as I mentioned in our email out to you, we can kind of maybe look for a little bit of a lower. It's kind of maybe turn on the job employment numbers as well to see if we can get some decent employment percentages. Maybe we can look to build in this 18.6% and help increase the employment We can also look at population to see where there's some strong population with lower employment numbers, and see, again, try to beef up the economy in a certain area. Maybe there's some job incentives that we can discuss, and also, work on to help, again, improve the employment in a particular area. So I'm going to kind of focus in on this particular census tract right here. And kind of the next step is we start to go to our market scanner and just see what makes sense in terms of developing based on our guidelines. So first I'm going to start out with a multifamily, see what kind of parcels appear. So we have more over in this 10305 area. And just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of how many parcels total we're looking at, we're looking at about 2,000 parcels in this particular part of Deerfield Beach. And those that are zoned for multifamily, down to 100 right there. I just want to see if there's any industrial plays as well. Here we go. So we have about 116. So let's focus on this industrial for the moment, as we have 116 parcels matching in this particular part of Deerfield Beach. As I mentioned, it's a little bit of a lower employment percentage. So this could be a good possible opportunity to develop. See what else we can enable. We can also turn on our buildable area slider to try to find lots of a certain minimum size. So 200,000 is a little too high. Let's try maybe 100,000. All right, perfect. So now we have 4 parcels matching within a certain census tract that makes sense to us, and as well as zone for industrial is in zone for a minimum of 100,000 buildable area square footage. Now we can see if any of these are vacant land as well. So put some zeros in here. All right, none of them are vacant. So that's all right. Let's kind of turn on the satellite layer to see what we're kind of looking at here on these parcels that maybe they make sense. All right, I'm going to zoom in some more. It looks like this is a existing building with a parking lot right there. I believe this is a parking garage right here. Zoom back out. And kind of the goal here is to just, again, we're trying to go through different parts of Deerfield Beach, looking for sites, again, zoned for industrial, meeting my minimum requirement of 100,000. I want to see if I can find if there's any vacant land in this particular area. And right now there's none matching here. So see if there's anything comes up. All right, so we start to see we have 1 parcel matching up here that is vacant. And we kind of select that parcel. Let's see, we have median income of 36,000. I want to see what census tract it actually resides in. It's in 10307. A relatively flatter tract. All right. This is vacant commercial. Let's see, vacant land. We're looking at about 122,000 square foot lot size. Buildable area is 122,000. So we have a tremendous amount of potential here. Building height is 100 feet. And then you can see all of the very general uses allowed for this particular parcel. So we have warehouses, manufacturing, we do office and business, industrial. So maybe this would be a good play for a little bit of industrial and office play. So considering the size and the shape of this piece of land, what I'm going to do is we're going to actually, I'm going to select this and we can go into and do a preliminary underwriting. And we're going to do office and industrial. We're going to hit continue. Now we'll go into our 3D modeling of this particular parcel and just kind of see if this site makes sense. Could see if we can decide and decipher there's a potential here with this particular parcel. And again, this is kind of the use of Deepblocks, going through these iterations, going through the sequence, and again, doing it at a high level and truly understanding and see what is possible for these particular parcels. If it doesn't make sense, can we go to the next step with this, or should we scrap it and continue to look for other sites, or essentially find, I mean, the whole premise is to really find as many sites that fit your model. If it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, and then kind of export out the PDF reports, analyze those reports, and then kind of make a decision with your team saying, all right, property 2 and 3 make the most sense out of these 5 properties. Let's move forward with 2 and 3 and take it to the next step. And then essentially maybe it's number 2 that ultimately comes out on top. We're trying to get you to find these 5, 10 properties relatively quickly, and then allow you to go through that analysis and narrow it down to just a handful, if not just 1 or 2, as quickly as possible, and get those to an LOI and get you moving on that process, which normally could take up to a month, 2 months, bringing in various consultants, bringing in various teams, where with Deepblocks, you're kind of doing within your own team in-house, using the software to eliminate a lot of the delays in coordinating everything, as well as the upfront cost, and kind of getting to the same end result, that you're finding properties that make sense for your criteria and your development agenda. So with that being said, let's continue to look at this particular parcel. Now we notice it's a very oddly shaped parcel, but we can work on the shape of this by entering setbacks, as well as we're going to put some parking in. Maybe we'll just make it ground parking since there's so much property here. So we have 25, 20, 10, and 25 for front, secondary, side, and rear setbacks. And we have an FAR, I believe, of, let's see, there's an FAR here. No, there's yeah, lot size of 122,000. All right, FAR is just 1, but building fleet is 100. All right, it's a PID. So what we're going to do first, we can put these setbacks in. As I mentioned, they're 25, 20, 10, and 25. So I believe this is going to be your front. This will be your rear. We're going to leave the others alone for the moment. I'm going to adjust these significantly in any case. All right, so what we're going to do is now we can adjust these setbacks unique to each side. Let's just make them all 25 for the sake of this example. We're really going to push it back quite a bit, just to have quite a bit of room to work with this. All right, so we're going to zoom in, kind of look at this a bit. We're at a 4.89 return on cost. So as you start adjusting and defining your building and adjusting your assumptions, as we're going to go through right now, everything automatically is computed in your return analysis. You'll see your breakdown. This is your 1 year back to the envelope breakdown of income and cost. Then we have our assumptions, which kind of are broken down by line item in more specific detail: property, building, your areas, your economics, and your project cost. And then lastly, you can export this information into a PDF report. It'll be a 4-pager. But before we move ahead, we can adjust on the income side the assumptions. We could first work on the gross billable. So for office, maybe we'll just go about, let's say, we'll do about 85,000 square feet of office. We can work on the industrial side. Right now we're only at 20. It's still a little bit bigger in industrial. Say about 9,000 industrial. And what we can do is I'm going to adjust our setbacks a little bit more, because we can adjust the setbacks so that the first story is just the industrial, and the second story is the office. And we can actually put these a little bit bigger and make this almost sit on top of the industrial in that manner. But then we can kind of play with the office a little bit. We can kind of adjust this a bit. We can work on the income side. So we are showing incomes. These are based on some market values for this particular part of Deerfield Park. As I mentioned, we take an aggregate of listing data, We then apply our machine learning to bring you a strong baseline of the dollar per square foot being leased for office income. But again, we leave it adjustable if you feel that you can get more or less depending on what your situation is. So I'll say we can get $28 a square foot. We can now go into the industrial side. Let's shrink this a little bit. Actually, maximize it a bit. Let's see if we can get this. And if anytime you max out on a slider, you can always increase it by just by adjusting the value at the bottom. What I'm going to do is just want to try to get industrial all the way at the bottom. All right, perfect. And what we could do is all this pale green space around, we can make that parking for surface level parking. So you kind of get an idea of how this building is being structured. It's very large, industrial warehouse below. We could put some, and as I mentioned, office on top. But in going through the industrial now, we can adjust the income side as well. Again, we're bringing that sub market value. We can maybe make this $20. And again, work on that ROC, not too bad, 6.19% ROC. Again, it's 1 year back of the envelope calculation. Now we can go on the project cost side. As you notice, you can adjust the purchase price. We can look at these different types of costs. It's a soft cost, a percentage of the hard cost. Maybe we can do 12% of the hard cost. Same with the income. We can adjust these as they are sub-market values that we are pre-populating this with for this particular census tract in Deerfield Beach, Florida. But again, we always leave everything adjustable. If you feel that you might be able to do a little bit better than 154, maybe you could do 150. And maybe we can do 95 square foot for industrial. I mean, the whole concept here is just to kind of work the project, obviously within reason, within the guidelines that you're accustomed to, and just, again, go through the process and try to get a good understanding of what is possible on this particular parcel. Can we get it to a relatively profitable number? And at the very end, you'll export this PDF report out. You can customize your report. As you see, we can enter who it's from, who it's going to, write a little summary. You can choose a cover image for this particular part, this particular parcel, upload your own company logo and change the company colors of the report so that it reflects your company's theme. And we go through and we start creating these reports. So these are nice 4-pagers. As I mentioned, your logo will go here, your summary goes there. And we start to look at the stacking plan, the zoning summary, with demographic trends of this particular area. You can see the population is down, but we're seeing some incline in rent, household incomes on the way up, as well as employment for population. So this could be a relatively decent project. And lastly, you'll see your financial analysis is the return on costs, as well as your breakdown of the assumption. So this is one report you can download, and then we kind of just go back to the previous screen and go back and look at our search and look for other parcels as well that meet our criteria. I mean, this is kind of the whole premise of Deepblocks. It's just to continue to find these opportunities that suit your development needs and work them through the process. And again, share these various projects with your team. Go through these iterations and truly try to find the parcel that makes the most sense for your company, and again, move it forward and kind of do it in a fashion that is much faster. And again, it's not only about speed, it's also about effectiveness. I mean, we're bringing you extremely valuable data. The zoning especially is just tremendous amount of information that we now have available in 100 cities. So you're able to do this not only within your own city, but you're able to do this at scale. Now, Deepblocks currently gives you a national subscription, which is, as I mentioned, $36,000, which gives you access to all 100 cities. We are in the process of doing segmenting the software and where you can pay by city, which will be $5,400. We actually do have that option available at the moment. It's an early it's an option that's available for those who are interested, where we can offer you the one city at a time, as if that's what you prefer, and you do not need a national license. So you can also get that at $5,400 per city. And you'll actually have access to we'll give you access to multiple cities. If you want more than one, this will price it for you in that regard. But with that being said, just feel free to contact me if you want to discuss the software further. You want to go through specific scenarios kind of more applicable to your company. But just to go a little recap again, we just want to kind of give you a nice little sneak peek of, again, these graphs that we are working on. These are being generated by machine learning models using all the data we have accrued from zoning data, demographic data, census data. I mean, our entire premise is to, and also market data, is to show you these graphs so you can, again, eventually we're going to show you how to compare cities across all 100 cities that we have. And again, that number is continuing to grow as well. So our goal is to add more cities, but we want to help you compare cities, find the right city where the trends are occurring that meet your development criteria. Once you're within that city, you'll look at the census tracts, compare the census tracts, and again, quickly identify based on what you're looking for. As we mentioned today, we showed land value. So if you're looking for land value that's on a strong incline, you hone in on those particular census tracts. If you're looking for land value that's staying relatively inexpensive and flat, you'll focus in on those census tracts. Maybe you look for census tracts that are adjacent to the ones that are growing because you know that's the next place that the trend is heading, and you go to that census tract. So we're trying to really, again, guide you and get your focus in on those census tracts at a much faster rate, and then begin to use our software to locate sites and go through site selection and narrow down from thousands and thousands of sites within a census tract to just a handful and start to work those parcels through the feasibility studies and various iterations to find out what is the potential of these particular parcels that you were able to narrow down to. Is it, again, do you have 2 or 3 that make sense? Maybe just 1 of the 3 makes sense. Maybe you have a list of 10. And again, you start to produce those PDF reports. You compare these reports with your team and come to a very strong decision to say, all right, these 1 or 2 properties or whatever it may be, it's time to move forward to the next step. And we just did this in a matter of days instead of a matter of months. And again, you're saving yourself a tremendous amount of money. It could cost thousands of dollars upfront in fees just to deal with consultants to just take care of one step of the process, when you can do it all here in at one time here with Deepblocks and using Deepblocks software. So with that, I do appreciate you guys joining me this week. And again, we're kind of getting a nice little sneak peek of how we're developing these graphs and showing you how to compare census tracts. And again, this will be available on the software in coming months as we get it built out for all the different cities we have available with zoning. As I mentioned, we'll be able to compare cities and compare census tracts and look at various different types of data sets. And we'll continue to release and show little sneak peeks of these different types of charts and graphs to help in terms of your development, build out, and understanding where the next trends are going and how to use the software in accordance to what we learned from these graphs. So I do appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you again next week, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Take care.